States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, everyone is present tonight. Open forum, anybody wish to speak? Okay, next item would be the consent agenda.
I would make a motion. How are we doing this now? To approve the minutes in the consent agenda and the list of bills and accept the treasurer's report. There's my motion.
The consent agenda, you don't have to, consent agenda as it's written, it shows you accept the treasurer's report.
Okay.
So you're just approving
Okay.
the consent agenda as it's written up in here.
All right.
If that clarifies it for everybody, it makes it a little easier.
Okay,
So
thanks,
that
Rena.
was Sue and Dwayne. Dwayne seconded? Yeah.
Yes, I
Okay.
did. And then, Mr. Mayor, if I could just carve out one for discussion, I think we don't need to have individual, but it was something on that bill that related to water. Let's see, where do we have that under, which line under 4?
Yeah, it's under tab 4.
Oh, that was under there was an email that came out this afternoon that there was additional bills, correct? Mm-hmm. Is that on our spot up here someplace?
Yeah, it's the second to the last page, the couple pages. The
Oh,
third-
those are included in here?
In your book?
Yes.
And what's the company? People Service. On page
Yep.
People Services, there's $275 March and another $275 back to back. What?
Actually, we want to end the contract this month, so I have to get approval. And so we won't be paying that bill. I've actually put a hold on that check, just so that, right now, Nick he feels he's comfortable with what he's learned with that well over there, and so he doesn't need their services.
So we're paying Nick regular pay for his, and then while we're getting him up to speed, we were continuing to pay People Services.
Right, and now we should be done with
Okay.
that.
So that'll be curtailed then at what point?
Yeah, I'm hoping the end of this month.
End of this month. So there would be another February. And this is for which,
This is for
March.
March, so we won't pay this then.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, motion remains in, go ahead, Rick.
We just got a couple of things here. We got garbage being picked up at Pleasant Lake and Community Park. I know in the past, when I was on the Park and Rec Board, we canceled that for the winters because they're not being picked up. I can guarantee you that they're not being picked up at Pleasant Lake because I go by there almost daily. And the other thing was park sanitation rental. I mean, we have the porta potties there. Really don't need them in the winter. I know we've taken them out in the past.
We have, and then what happened was that November, that big snowfall, they got left there, and then we had to plow it out, but that's past, I know, it
Right.
should get disconnected, yeah.
I'm just thinking we're
Nobody's
paying that,
using
we
it, though?
really shouldn't.
Is anybody using that though at all?
No.
No, yeah.
And one other thing is, page 3, top line, CarQuest Auto Parts, 25-pound bag of floor dry for $94.90.
I believe that's a misprint there. We had a call, we picked up bag, probably not 25 bags, but X amount of bags that were whatever poundage they are, and I think it's 10 or 12 bags.
Okay, because it has down here
I noticed
25 pound, I'm like, we're paying $94.90 for a 25-pound bag that usually costs about $3-4. That's,
No, whatever the amount was, it just, I noticed that it's probably a misprint there, that's what it is.
okay, so it's a lot of bags.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair and fellow council members, the issue that Member Tallman brought up regarding the sewage or the dumpster, we had that discussion at Park and Rec I see Paul is in the back of the room, and because of where we were at the season, and the polar plunge was coming, so we talked about it there and decided that from the Park and Rec perspective, that it would be redundant for us to take it out at this stage of the game and move it back in a month or two when the next season starts again. So the public, the Park and Rec committee was aware of it, discussed it, and felt that this year, but they were going to, there was a season, there's a, I think Paul could allude to that, but I think there's a time certain in the fall when it's supposed to be picked up and a time certain in the spring on a
Yeah.
calendar.
Yeah.
So our system is working, except not this year. So we have a system in place.
I do.
So,
It was 10 bags, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
but this year it would be redundant for us to move it out and take it again or something like that. So it's, but next year, hopefully in the fall, we'll have the system in place and continue.
There was an additional one brought in for the polar
Yeah,
plunge.
nothing to do with City of Rockville,
No.
though.
Yeah.
That's polar plunge people.
Okay, motion's been made second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Board and staff report, police report. We don't have
There
a,
won't be anybody here tonight because it's Ash Wednesday and he's at church.
okay. If anybody has any questions, I'm sure Rena can pass them on and we can get responses. or-
I did have one. Do you know anything about the crash that vehicle went off the road just a few doors down from me?
No.
I believe it's the fellow that the problems have been at Ruth Brown's house with all the additional trash. His truck left the road and hit some trees and just kind of curious what happened there.
No, I don't know, and I don't know that Rodney would he would divulge that to me either, so I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, next item, fire department approve moving the annual meeting to the fire hall and serving alcohol. This used to be at the Parish Center.
Yes. And I've talked to the League of Minnesota Cities, you have to approve the actual location because it's on city property. And other cities have done this in the past, so it's nothing new to them, they just need your blessing.
Is there any issue with serving alcohol there, or,
Serving it, not selling it. They can
Okay.
serve it.
so, okay,
And it's just for their members or the,
yeah.
Yeah.
They've done that in the past
not there, but,
at the Parish Center.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not a new issue, okay.
I move to approve the request of the fire
I'll
department.
second that.
Motion been made and second to approve moving the annual meeting to the fire hall with alcohol. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Can I go
same.
on that, Rena?
Only if you don't
Let's
have a
see, are
drink.
you gonna really gain on that one or what? I don't know. You're not financially gaining on
No.
that.
I'll-
And that's a decision that's made by the individual, not the rest of us council members. Yeah.
In addition,
Nobody's that determined.
to this, Rodney asked me if you'd have any problem with them moving the bloodmobile up to the fire hall as well. The only thing is that the Parish Center is starting to charge for every time they use the building, and so they are offering that if you are okay with it.
Does that need approval too? We might as well take care of it right now.
Might as well, might as
Alright.
well.
I'll make that motion to allow the fire department to move the bloodmobile up to the fire department.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
And what is that for? Is it a city sanctioned?
No, the Lions Club, is it the?
Yeah, we have a Lions
bloodmobile?
Club that we do every year, but wouldn't that be a Lions Club function?
It is, isn't it? Yeah. That work it?
Maybe the council just needs to approve allowing it on city property.
Oh, on city property.
Property.
Okay,
Or
okay, yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay, motion been made and second to approve allowing the fire department to move the bloodmobile onto the fire department, fire hall property. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes. Next item, planning commission, Bill?
Mayor, council members, first item on the agenda is the Alt House Hunger to approve the concept plan. The property contains 44.6 acres. The notices were sent out to the public hearing, were sent out, and this property is zoned Ag 40. The owner's looking to retire and sell some of their property to their children. The area was made into smaller lots when it was originally platted. This area is not farmed and it's heavily wooded, so it's ideal for rural residential. The recommendation is to approve. The fire department did weigh in on that the road needs to be a certain width to handle a fire truck, and they're willing to do that. They have a little bit of cleaning up to do, and and the city wants to be able to cut trees along the road also. So the planning commission recommends to approve.
One thing we also want to do is, we're not going to be extending the road clear down to where that newest lot is. We're gonna still end it where the original roadway was ended. Now, when I was talking to Nick today, Nick Wallbillig, he says if there was any way they could, of course, he doesn't have to. We were gonna have him widen out that cul-de-sac for turnaround, but I think he could get around it. But if they're gonna be in there cleaning up, it'd be nice to make that just a little bit bigger. That was one of the requests. And at the meeting itself, we had neighbors in here that said they would like to see that whole roadway staked out so they know exactly where they're going with it. Because if you know that the original little roadway that's in there for the Mr. Miller way back in the corner, it's partially, it's not on the line. So they want to see this new roadway at least split 50-50.
So we're only approving though the rezoning, so they'd have
Nope,
to,
you did the rezoning already.
Yeah.
This is the concept
This is the
plan.
concept.
okay.
These are just things we talked about at the
Right.
planning commission last week, and they each have submitted a site plan showing where they'll have 2 septic sites for each lot. That's one of the requirements. We will be talking to them or figure out what the value of that land is as far as figuring out what a parkland dedication fee would be. There's a total of 5 lots.
They're willing to do that.
Yeah, and they're willing to, they want to just pay in versus dedicating land. Wouldn't really make sense to put a park up there. So,
So this is a city road,
Yes.
city maintained
up to
road?
that one point where it's currently maintained now, we are not going to maintain it further. That's
Okay,
still gonna be theirs.
but okay, so at a certain point, we don't maintain it anymore, but we have to, if we bring a truck or some plow in there, we have to go further and into a cul-de-sac and be able to turn around?
There is a cul-de-sac, somewhat of a cul-de-sac where they turn around in now. They're gonna extend this road down further, or it's actually an easement that goes further, but it's not gonna be built up to anything like what the city would be maintaining. So where we're currently turning around is where we're gonna turn around, so we're not making more work for us.
Okay, and that's big enough, or we want them to make it larger, did I hear you say?
Yeah, just a little bit bigger on the cul-de-sac where,
I plowed there like last, it's a smaller cul-de-sac, a little bit, I think if you talk probably to the owners, if we can get a little more. It's, it's feasible, I've been in worse, small that'll work there.
yeah.
But it'll work, we can probably work some, and then I talked to one of Mr. Schmidt out there today, he had a question in regards to that road going in, he was staking it out wider there, like, why they went to 33 feet, I said, well, that's the whole right-of-way easement they have. But I said, the roadway is just, we only need 18 feet for a top roadway
Yeah.
surface.
Correct.
Right.
So he was a little concerned, but he said he'd call me if he had any questions, I said, check back. He was just a little concerned about that.
So the next month, you will see both the preliminary and final plat done together. And all the information that's required with that,
And so there will,
beyond that.
you brought, I think you said something about, there's a question of if the road is in a proper location, so when they bring the final plat in, that'll be resurveyed and we'll know exactly
Yep.
where our road is?
Yep.
Okay. And then you said something about, so we can clear the trees? Why
Well,
would
we would ask if they're gonna go in there and clear some trees, they're gonna, for the daughter that's moving way in the back, if they will just clear out a little bit more for that cul-de-sac, that's all we're asking.
Okay.
Well, we don't want them to just do a big,
Clear cut.
clear cut. We don't want that, because that is a pretty nice wooded area. But
Well, should we somewhat define these conditions then if we're gonna approve these to either have, Dave say, this is how much we want you to clear out and how much we want you to expand the cul-de-sac, and if the road's not exactly where it's supposed to be, then
move it.
we'll have him lay out what the road should,
We will certainly follow up with that, yes.
I believe Chris said that easement he's getting, it's on his property line, and, the neighbor that goes down right, half the road will be on one side, this easement, half on the other, is what we understood him, standing in there, right? That's what he told me, I said, so, that'll be a problem, and we just, like I told him, we just need fire department wants 18 feet of road surface,
Yep.
and there's not enough tree branches, trees aren't hanging, and the cul-de-sac, if the private, it's gonna be private road, so they'll have to make sure it's big enough, to accommodate whatever they have in there.
And that will be all the way down to that house, because as I
Right.
understand it, there's a big drop-off at the end of that easement. So they're gonna do a kind of a switch around, is what I think he called it.
On the one lot?
Yeah, on the one lot, where they're gonna go around the, one area and down somehow. That's gonna be a windy thing, but
That's on private property.
that's a private
That's on private
property.
property, yeah.
There's two issues that, and I know that area rather well, and one of them, the cul-de-sac obviously is not large enough so that a fire department truck could come in. We better make sure that the reverse works on the fire truck, because you can't get that turned around. So it's not designed as large. There's a public right-of-way if it's a 120-foot cul-de-sac at the end, but the portion that you should have to turn around, if you do it in any other spot where there isn't trees, it would be 90 feet. And so if we're gonna abide by the standards in the standard cul-de-sac, it should have to be 90 feet of area for vehicles to turn around. But the opposite side, it'll have impact on trees and things of that
Yeah,
nature.
right.
And so the fine line would be to have a dog leg rather than to have a full cul-de-sac where you just have like a T at the end. And so I think it'd be wise for the engineer to look at that when he's
Right.
out there.
Yeah.
Have Mark look at it and look at the dog leg rather than the full cul-de-sac. Because you're gonna save trees and you're still gonna have it's like a T at the end. You just turn in, back up, and then head back out. Same thing with buses. Because right now it'd be virtually
The bus-
impossible.
Yeah, the buses will be more of an issue now since there'll be kids.
Yeah. They're selling for children. One other quick question, and that is the park dedication fee. There wouldn't be sack and whack, but there would be park dedication fee. Is that paid when the building permits are pulled, or is that when the improvement is accepted?
Is when it's accepted
When improvement is accepted and it's based on the value of the land
at this time.
at the time before the improvement. So it's current, and that's based on the value of the assessor, or do you have an appraiser come in?
The assessor,
The assessor,
Yeah.
and both parties would, meaning the city, and also
Yeah.
that party would agree that the assessor is the common
I
denominator?
believe that's what the ordinance,
Okay,
whatever's on the books at the time.
'cause that's been a bone of contention in other communities.
Oh.
How do you come up with that value for park dedication fees, if it's before the improvement or after the improvement? And it's case law, it's before the improvement, if
I
you
would say it's
take.
before, what it is
It
right
is.
now.
Yeah, and that's the way it was in our development too. It was valued based on the time.
Did I have that with their minutes too?
Yeah, they're aware of that. That
We
was
went through
discussed
quite a-
with them.
That was quite a discussion point about the park
Yeah.
fund, so.
So
So
they're,
this-
they're aware and they would choose, I mean, are aware they have a fee and they'd rather do that than dedicate
Right,
land, so.
money rather than
Yeah,
land.
yeah.
I'm surprised it's based on value. I thought it was a per lot fee, but I don't, if you guys pull the ordinance and it is based on value, I guess I believe you, but that's surprising.
Sack and wax would be per lot or per hookup, and it keeps increasing.
I thought
It's 1,800 square feet per lot, okay, that's what they're supposed to dedicate,
1,800 square feet
square feet,
or a dollar amount, right?
or the dollar amount of that 1,800
Yeah,
square
but I just
foot.
don't never remember hearing that it was a percentage of value or,
It is. Bill, you've got it right there, don't you?
Yeah, I was just trying to find it.
you did see, well, I trust you, if you looked it up at the planning commission, you don't need to find it again. Okay, I believe you. Okay, so do we have the list of conditions before we make a motion on this, or?
Just, I think, have adequate size, or have our engineer look at the possibility of a dog leg at the end rather than a cul-de-sac. I think that's something,
Okay.
just so that we have our fire department covered in school buses so they can get in and out.
And they'll clear the trees, that's their cost, their responsibility, clear the trees per our engineers.
It would have been, that improvement went in when it was still a township, and so those supervised, before it was a city, before it became this
I
new
did find
city.
it.
So the standard that they would have had back in those days were probably very obvious, or obviously less, or weren't
I
strict.
guess I'm not following, right? I'm reading this here, and I'm thinking the planning commission is indirectly or directly through the engineer, putting a condition on here that we need to make sure that we have room to clear the trees. But I'm saying, why would it be our responsibility? Can't we require them to clear the trees?
So it had to do something with the easement.
Rather than we have to have that expense and,
No, that would be.
No,
that's
this
the
is
whole
all
property
their
owners.
expense, not ours.
Everything
Assessed against the
is
benefiting property holders, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
all right.
Actually, it's in our books.
Yeah.
It says, the park dedication fee. It says the fee shall be based on the average value of land within the city. The city may use the values as determined by the county assessor or any licensed or approved appraiser.
Okay, yep, also it's in our,
Does it say what that percentage is, or how do we, just that it's, don't we establish that at the beginning of the year, what that,
With our fee schedule?
yeah, is that,
Oh, and up above, Rena, it does say, and shall be based on the value of the land at the time the subdivision or any first phase is approved.
Right, and you have to have 1,800 square feet of land shall be dedicated for each single-family residential lot, so whatever that
Yep.
space works out to be.
okay, have we done one of these lately? I mean,
No, no, we haven't, so we'll have to,
unless it's on a large development.
Yeah,
right.
right, okay. Well, we need somebody to make a motion that includes,
Okay, I'll attempt that. I'll make a
Conditions.
motion to accept the recommendation of the planning commission, and the added restriction or request would be to have the engineer look at the ample turnaround, be that either a dogleg or a cul-de-sac, or expanding the cul-de-sac.
I'll second.
motion been made and second, no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion passes.
The second challenge we had was the definition that we were asked to look at for structures on lakeshore property. We had a lengthy discussion and we just didn't have enough information to go down that road, so we postponed it till April. By April, excuse me, to have that bring back and present it to you folks.
Could I make a comment here on that definition, structure definition that's in our book here? When it gets down to structure water-oriented, means a small above-ground building or other improvement, except stairways, fences, docks, or retaining walls, which because of the relationship of its use to the surface water feature, reasonably needs to be located closer to public waters, other than a normal structure setback. So isn't that like the Mike Roth, was it?
But I
We're
think
talking
our
about
ordinance actually says
They're not permitted.
water-oriented accessory structures are not allowed within the shore impact zone. I mean, that part is spelled out very clearly, so.
That's in our ordinance.
Yep, in our ordinance, so this definition was given so you know what water-oriented structures were, but our ordinance specifically says they're not allowed.
And our ordinance can be more stringent than the county, but it cannot be less stringent. So if
Right.
we have a ordinance that says that it's further than, if the county says 25 and we say 50, the 50 prevails.
Correct.
Yep. So we'll bring that back to you folks, just so you know we didn't have enough information.
Yeah, so, yeah, the issue of a movable structure was brought up, and so, just,
Well, it includes
Encourage it.
fish houses.
yeah, planning commission to somehow, gotta address it, I mean,
And I'm not clear on it either. All I just was bringing it up
Yeah.
the last time around, and that can be defined. And I talked to Shelley Benson about it at the county level after the first, it's not in this last month. And there was vagueness in her explanation to me also. So it sounds like it's one of those, I don't know, decisions that might be selective decision or something like that. Not that I'm recommending selective decisions, but sometimes you just gotta go with the role, so.
I guess I'm not really understanding, because our underwater-oriented structure, it specifically says fish houses, and that was the example given, saying, well, they're movable, and that's defined here, and then our ordinance says they're not allowed. So
But there's no council action that's needed tonight anyway. So
Nope.
we'll wait for a return comment from,
Okay. Bill, you still got an opening on the planning commission, and I think we advertised, got no application, so I just proceed on with the group you got? Okay. All right, thank you. Let's skip old business until the end, in case that might take some time. Let's move on to new business. Bruce Conrad would like to purchase the piece of property that was, city property was approved previously to Ken Tam.
Now, if everybody remembers where I'm talking about, it's up there by the Pickup and Power Sports, and then the John Linneman owns the building right off of Highway 23 and County Road 82. There's that little leftover strip of land that you had agreed last summer to sell it to Ken Tam for $500. It's just a residual thing. Any problem with doing that? I would have to go ahead with the paperwork, getting that quitclaim deed drawn up for him to sign if you're in agreement with this.
And
it's not the lot that the electrical company TAM was. This is the residual
That
little
little
piece between
residual
the-
piece,
the
yeah.
alleged TAM property and then the right-of-way of Prairie Industrial Road.
Yes,
Okay.
right.
It
That's
makes
correct.
the other piece
Bigger.
more utilized.
Yes, it
Right,
does, and it doesn't do us any good.
Right.
Okay.
Because that's why I shouldn't say we, but the former council had approved the sale to Ken Tam. And that was part of his condition. He needed that in order to get his structure. I think it had to do
To
something
the-
with
yeah.
the driveway or something. Yeah. I would make a motion to go ahead and,
For $500, same deal.
same deal, yeah.
I would second that.
motion been made and second to allow the sale of this piece of city property to Bruce Conrad for $500. All in favor, say aye.
I
Opposed, same, motion passes. Next item, Kathleen Stanger requests approval to have the Rockfest Parade and fireworks.
I don't know, is she here?
With, no, I assume what city paying the insurance is what you're looking
Correct.
for?
Yep. In the past, it's been about $438 a year. That covered the whole event.
As a rider to our over and above through the league,
Yes.
I so move.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and second to approve the parade and the fireworks with the city paying the insurance. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion passes. Next item, member Willenbring requests for funds to attend the NLC conference in Washington. Dwayne, why don't you explain what the NLC is and what, maybe just as brief as possible, what's gonna be covered, and because we're considering spending taxpayer money, how it might benefit the taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. And I believe, if anything, the operative word that's missing in that agenda item should be partial. It's gonna be about a 2,500, 2,400. I conveyed that to Rena and asked Rena to circle it. And I don't wanna sound egotistical here, but to the best of my knowledge, this hasn't been happening before ever in the city of Rockville. And it's 2,248. Could I just borrow that for a second? This is the request, and what it boils down to is, for many, many years, I've served on the League of Minnesota Cities, on the National Association of Home Builders Environmental Issues Committee. Shortly thereafter, I got involved into city and became a city council member here, just got sworn in for the third time. So all of this is building up to the potential of having that position that I achieved. And that also, by virtue of being a member of the City of Rockville Council, and Rockville is a member of the League of Minnesota Cities, we have the right to have any of our candidate or any of ours to serve on the state level. I serve on the League of Minnesota Cities currently on the policy committee, but on the national level, there is 7 standing committees, and that is primarily to create, and it's huge. And I think if you look at the other one, I didn't have all of it here, but on the original one, and there was a a link to it, and I don't know if any of you did, but it's fairly substantial. There's a congressional conference that's held the first weekend of March, 7th through the 11th, and there's going to be creating policy. And of those 7 committees, the one that, it happened last fall when we had a meeting in Waite Park at the Moose Lodge. Our administrator was there, and Jim Miller, the executive director of the state of Minnesota, League of Minnesota Cities. And he said, Dwayne, with those backgrounds, you should really consider it. And I think you have an opportunity to actually get put on that committee at the national level. And lo and behold, just a couple of weeks ago, it happened. I got selected, and the other gentleman from Minnesota, I believe, is the mayor of Rochester. And it's the committee that is energy, environment, and natural resources. And so the background being on the fact that I serve in the Sauk River Watershed District, the fact that I had many years of background on environmental issues, and the fact that I'm serving as a city council member, those were the primary things. And so Mr. Miller, the state executive director of the League of Minnesota City, sent a support letter along with my application, and I prevailed. So it's a $2,248, my projected costs to attend that conference. It's the lodging. That's the killer out there. I've even been researching to try to find some other lodging that would be less. So I'm asking the city of Rockville if it's at all possible to help offset some of my costs. I have made the commitment. I am going out there. It's a once in a lifetime experience for me, not to go to DC. I've been to DC many times, but to represent the league on a national level is very humbling for me. So that's kind of where the background is at, Mr. Mayor.
So you apply for a position like this or?
Yes, and it would have been only with the recommendation of somebody of Mr. Miller at the state level. I mean, they're constantly looking for people that would serve in that capacity. The sad part of it, never enough money to go around, and that's why I've not just you, I've reached out to 2 other entities to see if they can help fund partially. And one of them is the Sauk River Watershed District, because quite frankly, they also are a member of the League of Minnesota Cities. The league at the state level does not have funding for outside other than staff, and they're going to have a staff person there. So along with that, there's a hill visit, and there will be, there was a confirmation that came through today. Senator Klobuchar and Senator Franken are available, so we will have a meeting with them. The sad part of it, the timing, that particular week, some of the legislators have their in-house back here. So Tom Emmer is not going to be out there, but I'll be seeing him tomorrow morning at breakfast. And so anyways, it's a very unique opportunity. Will the city of Rockville gain monument? I don't have a clue at this stage of the game, but the state of Minnesota, by having a voice on that committee, there's, I believe, 18 or 21 members on the committee, and we'll be meeting with the one person. And I did, when I was with the Builders Association, we met with the Secretary of Interior at that time, Mr. from Oregon, Kempthorne. The current Secretary of Interior is a female, Sally Jewell, and that's a person that will be at that gathering. So I don't know if any other things will help with the process, so any little partial payment would really be appreciated. And I don't think there's a precedence that's been established in the city of Rockville as it relates to outside of local travel or something like that.
Okay. I guess I would just add that when I took over as mayor, I, asked that any counselor or staff person attending any taxpayer paid training or anything come back with a report that explain to the city through the council what they learned that might be beneficial, and so that that is something I guess I don't have any legal authority or whatever to enforce, but something that's certainly encouraging. I believe the council supported that at the time, so I still would like you and Rick to have those reports from the last event that you attended, and I think And I think I asked Rena to remind you of that before you go. You know, I think it's important that when you go to those things, to have that in the back of your mind, because you pay a little better attention during a meeting and try to make notes of things that you can come back and report to the council, so.
I guess I would just add to that, maybe not just a report of the sessions attended, but sort of really what were your takeaways, or, you know, what are the, if there's policies or changes happening that we should be thinking about or aware of, or there's something we ought to be thinking about in a different way for the city of Rockville. So I guess less about, like, here's the session I went to and this is what it was about, but more, what should we be thinking about? So I guess sort of what were the takeaways that impact the city?
And I think that's very appropriate. I have gone to a lot of league meetings that I picked out of my own pocket. This is the first time that I ever did, and that I ever got paid from the city of Rockville, and that was the experienced legislator that I went to in concert with Mr. Tallman. We shared a room to keep the costs down. That is still a bill that I picked up. I thought the city was paying for it, but apparently it hasn't. It was just a payment, but it's, Rena has made a commitment that that was policy, so I have a bill here and I'll be turning that in for the lodging also. But anyways, getting back, those are two different issues. One of them here at the state, the other one's at the national or something like that. And quite frankly, for me to be able to do this here, we've already had 3 webinars. One yesterday was canceled due to some snow out there in DC, so apparently they couldn't get to their office at 15 and M Street. But, well, that's the builders, whatever. It's relatively in the core city, close to the Capitol. That's where their League of Minnesota Cities thing is. And this conference is held at the Wardman. I've been at the Wardman quite a number of times. An expensive place. So I'm hoping to find less lodging, but again, I'm just asking for a partial amount, and it's a one-time. It's not like I'm going to come back here next year again and again or something like that. It would be only for this one. It would not be precedent setting, I don't believe. I think the council should look at that as an individual situation, if they do.
Okay.
I would have a question. Do you have any inkling to the other sources that you were requesting funding? Do you have any?
I was at the meeting last night, and that's a good question, last night, and I stepped out of the room, being the chair of that League of Minnesota, of the Sauk River Watershed District. I didn't think it was appropriate for me to be in the room, and I offered that to the administrator and also to the mayor tonight, that if you felt compelled, I'd gladly step out while you deliberate. The League of Minnesota, the Watershed District is going to the state, and they're asking for it. We have one of the members that serve of the 9 that's on the state board. They have a fund that they will know by next month. So the request was in, they decided not to, but the county commissioners were there. The county commissioners would gain a whole lot, and the suggestion came from someone else. Why don't you go and ask the county commissioners, because the county will prevail a lot more than a little city of Rockville, obviously. And I don't mean to say a little city of Rockville in a negative, but on the state level and at the county level. So they're, one of the commissioners was there last night, and he's taken it to the county. So at the county level, municipal league there, the Sauk River Watershed District, and then city of Rockville. Those are the 3 spots that I have. And I got the blessing from my wife too. So that's, I think, very important too, if you want to.
All right, Rena's put something in our packet here that this sort of goes through a few questions regarding if it's a proper public purpose for this expenditure, and I'll just read it for the public. This chart provides a summary of tests a public expenditure should meet in order to be valid. If an expenditure does not pass all of the following questions, the expenditure may be doubtful. In this case, a city should consult its city attorney before making the expenditure. First item, they categorize a test. Does a statute or charter provision specifically or implicitly authorize the specific expenditure? I don't know if I can answer that, but I would guess it probably would. I mean, I don't know how much different this would be than
We're not a
If-
charter, we are a statute,
Okay.
statutory city, so.
I mean, if, like, say, if I went to some mayor's conference in St. Paul or whatever,
That's
I mean,
same
it
thing,
would be
yeah.
really different, or if I went to.
So that would
see
be,
it,
I
so
think, yes.
I think that
Yeah.
I would answer that, yes. Does the expenditure benefit the community as a whole? That one, like Dwayne will even admit, it's hard to tell there.
I think looking though at it says, it's, the committee looks at policy issues involving air and water quality, energy policy, national wetland, solid and hazardous waste management. And I think, given the type of city that we are, I think there are certainly
Possibility.
things that I think could be relevant, certainly to the city as we look at it.
Yeah, and I think what you read off, Sue, was probably answers number 3. Is the expenditure directly related to the functions of government? Those issues of
Yeah.
air and
Yes.
water and stuff, I think that one should be answered, yes, so. Go back to number 2, I guess, I would answer one very possibly,
Yeah.
so. Number 4, does the expenditure have as its primary objective the benefit of a private interest?
And I would say no.
Right. So, open for discussion, and like Dwayne's offered to leave the room, but I personally don't think that's necessary, but whatever the council wishes, I think we can discuss it with Dwayne in the room, but what's the wish of the council? Oh,
I think it would be worthwhile to consider some type of help in this. It would be nice to know what the other entities would be willing to pay, because we wouldn't want to be putting out too much. If they were willing to pay more, let them pay more, and,
right, right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, and I'm not trying to influence here, if the council would not be ready to make a decision tonight and need to research it, I would gladly take it off the table for a month and bring it back and tell you about the report, the whole 9 yards, and experience it, and then see after the fact if it helps. Because if I was on the other side and I was sitting as a council member, not as a recipient, I'd have the same challenge. So it's not like that decision needs to be made tonight.
So how many, Rick had a good question with the soil water conservation, how many other entities? have
2
you-
others,
two other- So 3 total of 3 so far, would be the
Three
4th?
total, no, 3 total that I would have
Okay.
that I'm pursuing, but there might be others that are out there, and, there's a point of diminishing return. How much effort do you put in it before you just swallow your pride and just say, well, I'll find someplace else where I'm gonna give less?
I guess when this, when we received it, and I'll just say what I was thinking, that maybe the city of Rockville would do, I'd say like $300. And I know that's not, but at least it's something towards the conference. So that was my thought as I looked at it.
I would think too that we should, like, agree with Rick and Sue, that we should get, maybe the whole, but some of it, and he's got other entities looking to get it. And also, I think when he comes back, when Sue said a report, that there might be something he gains that will not just help us, but this area per se, central Minnesota somewhere, that will be beneficial to everybody, not just one city. But I think a partial would be, I'm fine with partial, so no problem with that.
I'm thinking he's made the offer to pull it. I
Yes.
think we would.
Yes.
I would tend to agree with Rick. I think, like Dwayne pointed out, I mean, we're stepping out of the norm by sending somebody to a national level. And if Dwayne's willing to offer to wait for the decision of the council, see what he can come back and report with, and both on what he learns there, and how it might benefit the city, and then on what the other entities are willing to pay it, I think that's very admirable, and
Yep.
take up your offer.
I have no problem, I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
So do we have to make a motion to table it?
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'll make
I'll
that.
make that motion to table it.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and second to table this request. All in favor, say aye.
And I'm gonna abstain, obviously, but
Aye.
is there a time certain? Is it tabled forever, or is it to a next?
Oh, I think like
or
the
to
next meeting after, like,
Okay.
right at, like if you could do your report and then,
When is your conference?
March 7th through 11th, so I would be back prior to the
Time,
next
yeah.
council
Okay.
meeting.
yeah.
And your responses from the other entities for
Well,
funding
one of
would
them
be?
probably won't be back until the middle of March or something like that, one at the state. I know where the Sauk River Watershed District is, but for the commissioner to take it to their level and pursue that's.
Should we
that's the
table it to the
process.
April meeting then?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I can amend the motion
That okay?
to the
Yeah.
April?
April morning. Okay, motion been made and second to table this till the April meeting. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same. Motion passes. Thank you, Dwayne.
We'll bring abstain.
Okay.
Gentlemen and a lady.
Okay, next item, mayor's report, schedule work session, good governance training from League of Minnesota Cities. Rena, do you have any kind of summary as to what that might all cover? And we can certainly add, I know Rick's wanted to have some discussion on open meeting and data practices. He can
Right.
cover that too, okay?
And that will be covered with these people here.
They covered a lot of that in the training session.
I also wanted to add on some training on variances and what those requests mean
Yeah.
and when you should grant it, because
Right,
as I listened at the last planning commission meeting, I'm not sure actually that we always have a good understanding of when we actually should be considering it or not.
yeah.
So I think that would be helpful. And we haven't done it for a really long time, so.
Is that something in the purview of this person from League of Minnesota Cities?
Absolutely.
They can cover that? Okay. Okay. All right, you guys with
Planning
your
Commission would be
blackberries or
here.
whatever?
We invite everybody from all committees.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Would they have anything on what I had sent to you, Rena, about some of the other things that Dwayne and I had talked with some of the other attendees at the conference where these entities are going paperless
Paperless, yeah.
and getting city emails versus our personal emails, because that kind of mixes into data practices and.
Yeah, they can certainly address that, and I did actually call or emailed our gov office, we got our emails through. It's $50 per account per year, just so you know that right off.
$50 per account?
$50 per account per year.
Per year. Okay. Would that be something we would do just for counselors and?
I would think so,
do
yeah. I
planning
mean,
commission?
you have, we have 5 accounts. Or 4 right now.
Okay, so we'd be adding 5 more, $250
You
a
can do
year?
it, yep. That's
Okay.
cost, so.
And if I may, does the cost benefit analysis, that was the city of,
Elko, Newmarket.
yeah, southern end of the metro, they did a lot of in-depth analysis on that. And
Well-
the mayor sat on the same table that we were at.
Yeah, what the stuff that Tom, the administrator, sent to me doesn't have that real big breakdown thing that Rick, you and I talked about, the payback
Right.
and how that goes. But we've been doing some research too, so we could certainly talk about that. You wanna see how you feel about that? Don, don't look like that.
I'm just listening.
All right,
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Rena, when you're talking to the staff, is it Franzel? Is it Kevin, the director
No,
of
no, we were
services?
talking to Doug Gronley from the insurance trust side, but he will
Oh,
be,
yeah.
he'll be talking to Jeanette Bach and other attorneys from down there.
Kevin Franzel is right under the Jim Mueller, the director, and he's director of member services. And so then there's a lady, I forget Dale right now, but she's the one that's in charge. And I was at one, I don't know if that was in your session, but in our session, it's called Mosquito Heights. And that was the civility one.
Yeah.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yeah, I saw
You were
it.
at another training, they also had it down there, but it was at the other training in St. Cloud also that they had it. And that was civility. And there's an actual tape that was made. So if we're gonna have that workshop out here, and I strongly urge it, because there are, a lot of them are talking about strategic planning, and, you know, the brief report I got, written report, I'd gladly expand, but I think the logical spot where that really needs to be is in the workshops, and then long-term planning, 5-year strategic plannings, that's what a lot of the cities do. And Sue has talked about that many times in the past, But anyways,
That would be
I'm
great.
digressing here, sorry.
Okay,
Okay,
so
when
could
are we
we,
looking at doing this?
Date.
Next month, month after?
in March is fine, we just have audit the first,
Dwayne, when are you gonna be on then?
I'm just, I'll be back, 7th through the 11th, so I'll be back 11th, and then I have mod, 2 days in the metro area, Hill visits,
I go for those.
so I'll be back.
Rena, what works for you?
I would rather do it after the audit's over.
Which
And that
is,
will be the third week in March is when we have audit, so
Okay.
anytime after the 23rd, 24th. 25th is a Wednesday.
Would those be freestanding sessions, open to the public?
Yeah,
And
Well,
so,
we'll do it as a work session where they'll come and speak to us, but you'll have your dialogue, open dialogue with
and
them.
then chairs of the different, like Chair of Park and Rec, Chair of the.
They'll all be invited.
Yes, and that's what they really strongly suggest to get, and then community involvement, so that a portion of the segment would be to have Q&A questions that come from there. But, you know, I believe the mayor and you met with an individual, or at least had conversation with an individual, and hopefully they were singing from the same song sheet that they were teaching us. And
I
that
believe
is-
they are,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those
Okay.
workshops, we've had several of them up there at the watershed, and no decisions are made. If there are anything that looks like it is, then that gets deferred to the following council meeting then, or when it's
Right,
appropriate.
right, right.
Remember the protocol that's allowed in workshops.
As far as question and answer, I don't know if we want to open it to the public too much for that. I mean, the public can observe, but, I mean, we're going to have a lot of attendees from the committees, and we're, you know, otherwise this thing could
Yeah.
really blow into
But
pretty
rather
likely.
rather for us to try to micromanage that, if that's been successful in many communities, I think that we should have Verena research that and find out from the league what is the proper one, because one of the things that they stress is that the administrator knows the pulse of that community, and so that staff person, along with your city administrator, would determine the nature of the people that would be coming up, and then the cost factor that goes with it. So if we're trying to get into, let's say, planning and zoning, would be a different person that would be coming up than, let's say, if it's going to be a parliamentary procedure or something like that. And
right, I mean, I hear, but I think I would agree in a sense that I think we have to balance it, because primarily, to me, we were looking for this to be training for the various
Okay.
committees.
if that's,
And if it
Yeah.
warrants it, I mean, there's nothing to say we can't have another time where we do something
Precisely.
and change the structure. But I hear, I mean, I kind of agree, I wanna make sure we get through what we wanna
But
get
if you
through,
look
but we
right
could
on-
have another session.
yeah. You look right on the league, on the league, on the webpage, on the right-hand side, on the home run, it'll say specialized training, and you
Yeah.
dig into that one, there's lots and lots of different categories, but there's different staff people that they advance for that.
Sure.
I think we're all,
Okay, all right, let's
So
get
are
a
we
date.
looking at March,
Let's get a date.
March 25th? That's what Rena floated.
That's what I'm thinking, it's a Wednesday.
Wednesday night?
Which is where you normally meet on, we could do this in the afternoon again like we did the last time, or at 5 o'clock in the afternoon,
I could, you say the last one, we did from 3 to 5:30 last time, I think?
something like that, or maybe 3 o'clock.
Does 3 o'clock work? with
3 o'clock?
Oh, wait,
No?
I'm
No,
not here that day.
Well, you brought the date
I
up.
know,
now.
well, that's because she said it, but no, I'm looking at my calendar. I'm actually not here. I'm in Washington DC
Oh,
for
yeah.
something else,
All right,
so.
pick another. How about the following Wednesday?
Can we do the following Wednesday? April Fool's Day?
I'm okay.
April 1st?
Okay. It's done, April 1st,
And what time are we starting?
3 o'clock.
Okay.
All right, I will
Okay.
follow up with that.
Next item, we don't, Quarry Trail.
meeting tomorrow with Burlington Northern, I think it's tomorrow, none of us, Rena or I, neither of us are going, it's two staff and one of the other individuals, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Next item, Public Works, Pleasant Lake Road Survey.
Okay. All right, so everybody had a copy of the public, we discussed at the Public Works meeting on Thursday. One thing is we're gonna send out a survey, or city council hopefully will recommend we send this survey out to the residents of Pleasant Road for redoing the road and adding sewer and water. and Dave Plum will draw up some costs and a little bit of what we wanna do on the road. So, we would have the council's blessing, Reno will send that out to the citizens on that road. Another item was on Sauk River Road, you have some issues with the road getting, or the river getting close, starting to whitewash the road away, and, I've talked to, Sauk River Watershed District, they got some grant money, we're working on grant, and also today, Greg Berg from Soil and Water called me, and I set up an appointment with Nick, so look at maybe there's some funding that can help us there. You see Chapel Hill Culvert, we're kind of investigating, we're working on that one, I believe there's not much we can do, and it would be involved in the DNR and other entities. And then we also last at the council meeting, people from up at 131st Street, which is off the County Road 2 to 250, about doing some of the road to cover the rough washboardiness. We've looked at different options, and Dave had got some information from the state on the different, about millings and et cetera to use on there, but we're gonna check them out more, but normally we're just gonna do that under a regular graveling budget. And Nick is also gonna look at costs for getting 80th Avenue out. Sam was working on last year, we're gonna get that, Nick, so that's kind of a problem out there at Pleasant Lake for turning around. He wants to get that going probably over the normal graveling this summer. And then also he's looking at to upgrade the Kubota tractor more, maybe we'll just get one machine. We don't have to be driving so much, a little more efficient on a bigger mower. He's looking around up to the fire hall for different, how much dimension room we got for a salt shed, possibly a public works building up there. We discussed possibly some property in Prairie Industrial that lots are empty, but more or less we decided we don't want to take any potential business sites off the tax rolls. He's also gonna, the water tower and well, checking, getting some more estimates on what has to be done with the well and the tower needing repaired. Then there's this Griffin lot off of County Road 2. About, new business, we should have hookups to water and sewer. There's some issues there about we'd have to bore underneath the road and that, so we want to know, do we have a set a time limit when they should hook up, or do we want to do it, or do we want to have just a septic system for now? So we're going to do more discussion on that one. And then pick up power sports. We decided there, we need a council, probably council recommendation or a motion this, we sent them a letter that they should hook up to both services within the next 6 months. They've had several years to do that already, so then if the council wishes to go that way, we can proceed that way.
Any discussion on that?
Would that be the proper arena, we'll just council?
Anybody else?
Want discussion on any of the topics?
No, I would like to know if there's a motion for pick up power
Let's,
sports,
yeah, let's take the pickup and power sport, we'll
Yeah.
go back to the other one then.
then we'll come back to any other one. That the council, and have a motion that the council send them a letter that requests to have 6 months to hook up to sewer and water.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Motion been made, second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes.
We'll just finish these up, and then we'll take your questions there, Rick.
Okay.
Then there's water shut-off fee, we can reduce the fee from $100 to $50 for shut-off due to water line or plumbing repairs. Nick is finding a lot of houses that do not have a gate valve in front of the meter. According to Wayne, who just spoke of it, they're in violation of state plumbing code. So we discussed some policy changes here, as you can see there, about the fees. What do you think, if anybody has any comments on these fees, we want to change, so we wish to stay at Nick kind of, we discussed a little bit what the fees would be, want to keep it that way or change it. And one other item here was sewer lakes, we've got a lot of switches to be replaced and at a cost of $200 a switch. And we made a recommendation maybe that the finance committee should look at raising the sewer rates to cover these repairs. It's necessary to review because as these get older, probably there'll be more of them giving out on us. And then Nick had a request here about some public works, or he was gonna follow up with Rena on that. And now, anybody has any questions? Rick, did you have a question?
Yeah, first off, going back to the survey for Pleasant Lake, or Pleasant Road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Under municipal water, you've got on the last part, current whack charge is $18.52, and on the city website, it was 19 something, yeah.
44.
Yeah, so I think that should be corrected.
I think also in that one, and maybe we should just discuss it, I just noticed in reading the notes that it said, you know, our city engineer said he was using 1461
Yes.
per front foot, but that number hadn't been changed since 2007, and then he cited that the cost of Tarvia has gone up significantly, so, you know, he's suggesting we look at the schedule of rates.
Now, we can look, we've approved the rates for this, but we can also go back and look at this one again. You know, as a product, and we can bring it up in a meeting, discuss, we wanna raise that, find out, he'll get us some numbers on the cost of tar and that, we can discuss that, and maybe raise
Okay.
that rate there.
So the Public Works Committee's looking at that?
You know, we'll get that, or
Okay.
Davis and look at getting
Okay.
numbers.
Do you need a motion to approve sending this
Survey
survey out?
out, yep,
Yes, yes.
And
Amended.
the corrections will be on there before it
Yes,
gets sent out?
yes, he's made some corrections, they'll be on there.
yep.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion been made and second to approve mailing out the Pleasant Road survey. Further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion passes.
Any other questions on that?
Yeah, I have.
Dwayne?
Yeah, Donnie, when Nick is talking about many of the water main, or Rena, you had choice of words that you used.
Where am I talking now?
On the sewer or the water shut-off fee, that there was, the reason that you're looking at something different than the $50 and the
Right,
$100
yeah,
or something
right,
like that?
yep.
And what triggered that?
Nick is finding a lot of houses that do not
What's a
have.
lot?
What would you say, Judy? Have not,
2, 3?
I think you just went to one that did not have it.
So if there's one isolated case of, I know that every one of the homes that in the Countryside Edition have it, and every one of the ones in Taufin Edition has it. So that takes about 75 to 80% of the total homes in the core city that we know have gate valves prior to and
the meter,
beyond
and the
thing. So the only
before and
places,
after, right, of the meter?
by code, you need to have a gate valve before and after so that the city has the right to take the water meter out, replace that water meter without having to go out into the
Right.
street
Right.
and shut off the
Right.
water thing. And so of those very, very few isolated cases or something like that, I would imagine that they should be able to do it during regular hours. It's probably not gonna be somebody that does it on a weekend or something like that. So if we have a $50 shut off to shut it off, and then another $50 to go back out, to turn it back on after the services have been rendered, that certainly seems logical.
Right, that,
Yeah. And so what was it, we were looking at changing something here?
that's from $100 to $50.
You wanted to cut it to.
Cut to
Oh,
$50.
reduce it from
Yes.
100, so that's our current values that we have is 100?
Yes,
Yeah, we're gouging the public. Okay,
that's what we wanna do there.
yeah, so 50 to go and shut it off, and then another to go back and to
Yeah,
turn it back on.
Can I just clarify that the $100 fee is for the shut-offs due to non-payment, the late payment?
Okay, yeah, that's still.
This is
you bet.
separate, this is the other,
That
this is
sends a
another
signal.
service, yeah.
Yeah. It's
What does
usually
what does it cost to have one installed?
a gate valve,
Maybe 50
Oh.
bucks, huh?
a gate valve, I wouldn't know offhand, that's a plumber decision, you know, or something like that, but
You know, I mean, we want to encourage people to install them that don't have them, right?
Yeah.
So,
there's only 2 or 3 or something like that, and then if their water meter ever goes off and you have to go out to the street, if they do, obviously, if they were smart, they would bring that plumbing up to compliant and put that gate valve in.
Okay.
You know, if they're changing a city water, I mean, a drippy faucet on the inside, and they have to go out there and open up the gate valve, somebody didn't do the plumbing right to start with.
so this is $50 we charge,
For Dick to come in and shut them off,
or to come in off, but not on,
turn it back
on
on.
regular hours, do we still charge $50? Or $100?
It's the $50 if it's, okay, no, we said off hours emergency, you pay all on-call costs, mileage and equipment costs. Off hours, non-emergency, we just won't do it at all. So really that 50 bucks isn't coming into play right now,
Emergencies are a little different.
cause on clock, we're gonna do it.
On clock, no
Free.
charge.
We're not, no charge, we're gonna suggest that they get it, put in.
So then
I
what
guess
are we?
that's it, we're not really using the 50 bucks.
What are we being asked to reduce the fee for
We're not,
off the clock? We're not? Oh, okay.
As we talked about it, we decided this is how we're gonna do
It's
it.
a mood
so-
issue.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
all
right,
right, so-
all right. So Don,
It
Don-
is, yeah, it's mute, yep. Okay,
We got that one.
Okay, then, Don, did you get everything at one answer to sewer, this,
That was the finance committee, want them to look at the cost.
so is this something that finance committee takes up on its own, or is this something that comes through to public works with a recommendation? Or how does,
We, sh-
well, we know that those switches are $200. And you know how,
was there a process that we developed the sewer rates around the lakes to start with? You know, allocation of labor?
yeah, I haven't pulled out in a long time,
So
but
that's-
there was a certain process.
All that stuff
correct?
needs to be updated, not just adjusted for the
Yeah,
switches,
so we
right?
should look at it,
The whole thing,
just see if the rates,
Is it
So-
just a flat rate each month?
that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe spend, yeah, right.
But one thing that doesn't state here, but it would be only where there are switches.
Yeah, the grinder
Hence, the
stations.
meeting is locked, so the core city is by gravity, so there are
Right.
no switches.
Yeah, no,
Just
this
the
is
grinder
just the
stations,
lakes.
yeah.
Lakes.
Yeah,
so-
It's
Right.
totally different.
Yep,
So if it'll be a finance committee task with the input from Public Works as far as switches or anything else that,
Yeah,
right.
okay, all right.
okay.
Could I ask something about the sewer rates, since you're talking about the sewer rates? What is our current charge from Cold Spring per 1,000 gallons that we pump to them?
okay, now that's different, it's based on your BOD and your TSS, that's
Yeah.
biological oxygen dissolved and
Yeah.
TSA, total suspended solids, and it's all weighed out and we break it down by what percentage of the volume gets from the lakes area and what comes from the downtown area. So,
I was just kind of curious because in the newspapers where just recently Cold Spring had their sewer rates at $5 and change per 1,000 gallons and ours is $1.22. Just kind of wondering how that works out, but where we're sending our
well, they definitely have,
waste to.
they have different expenses than we do. They've got more people to share in it as well, so, you know, each city's gotta take care of how they need to, so yeah.
But I think I don't know if that we've looked at it for a
I
while,
was
so
just
I
gonna
think to
ask you,
look
when's
at
the last time we
the,
looked at
Never
it?
sewer-
looked at it for the lakes
you know, to
area
look at
since
the
we've adopted it.
expenses
Should we
and,
look at both?
Right.
yeah. We probably
Oh, I haven't
should,
looked at, yeah.
yeah.
But the cost that we pay for a unit of sewage going to Cold Spring, we have the operating and maintenance of that plant plus plant expansion. And that was expanded when the sewers went around the two lakes. And so that, there's a
We've
formula.
paid off our debt service to them right now, so,
Right,
and we've got certain capacity in the plant that we've paid for. So when that gets used up, then we'll be talking to them again. Since we have excess, they might buy from us right now, but currently we've got excess.
yeah, a certain percentage of the total
I-
capacity that we pay, 17.
I have been contacted by the cheese plant as of today, and he'd like to meet with a couple of individuals. He'll be back in town on March 28th, which is a Saturday. And the last time Paul Ashton and Don, you met with him.
Yeah.
But to go over the SIU, which is a standard industrial something, it's not a contractor agreement that I've looked at or used before, so I'd have to get familiar with it. SIU, Standard Industrial User? Oh, that's probably what it is.
Is that the Stickney Hills one
Yes.
that wanted to go into business park?
Yeah. So, if I get that firmed up for that Saturday, I'll certainly let the Public Works folks know about it. Yeah, and you'll get to meet David.
All right. And the next item, Marina Administrator's correspondence, accept treasury report only.
Oh, we already
covered
took care of
already?
that with our whole deal, so
Did
yeah,
you have
that's all I
anything
have.
All right, okay. All right, we'll go back to old business, the establishing water conservation rate. And at the last council meeting, the council agreed, and majority, not everybody, I guess, agreed necessarily, but agreed on a tiered rate. and using a $120,000 budget, and I know that doesn't include the gross budget with the water tower rent and stuff, and unaccounted for water usage, but we agreed that was to establish a projection for the revenue needed to accomplish our goals, and we used a $120,000 budget, and we allowed for 5% usage savings. So you'd have to build in the 5% more than 120,000, just ballpark. And then we agreed to try to fund 50% of the annual budget reserve, which would be roughly 60,000 over a 4-year period, so roughly $15,000 a year. So that amount of revenue needed to be added. So we have a lot of proposals here. I guess we can look at this one of two ways, discuss those that meet those general parameters in the essence of saving some time, or do we want to discuss everybody's proposal, or at least one proposal by everybody, I guess.
Could I interject here?
Go ahead, Rick.
First off, the guidelines that you're suggesting there are all reasonable, but I think we also have to remember there's state statutes that we gotta abide by. And when we're talking about all of the rates, the basis of charges, cities may charge based on water consumed, that'd be a flat rate. A flat rate is a constant charge, independent. Now that's where you're talking about the base fees. A flat rate is a consistent charge independent of water usage that may vary based on classification of property. But we have to remember the rates have to be just, equitable, and reasonable as nearly as possible, proportionate to the cost of furnishing the service. And Jeff, you had put that in your memo last month with your proposal you put in that we have to keep the rates proportionate to the cost of furnishing the service. And that's where, when I'm looking at like Sue's plan, and the top tier is $10 per thousand, and Judy had just sent us out all yesterday that our cost to produce 1,000 gallons is $416 or $412. Judy, I got it here somewhere.
412 plus the 10,
$412.
11? 1005.
Yeah, $10.05 for a fixed fee and $412 per thousand. So when we're getting these rate tiers all over the place, and our whole goal is to break even on the water fund, or right now I guess our goal is to get a little bit of surplus to build up that reserve fund. And do we know that reserve starting point now?
That was one of the parameters that wasn't brought up here that we had requested last month.
Yeah, and it's like, till we get the actual audit done, the best I can give you is the number, Rick, that I gave you there in January. You know, if you take all those funds and you minus out the certain things, it was like $49,000 that we had, but that's for all three of those funds. That's all that's left in the fund itself.
Yeah, so we really don't know our starting point on that reserve.
But
And I'd say-
and granted that, but I think we
But we
agreed
can
that.
always revisit it next
Yeah.
year. I mean, we're not locking ourselves into.
I think it's relevant though, and not that I'm here lockstep thought processes, but a lot of the pushback, if that's the right choice of words, at the lack of transparency from my perspective, the revenue stream of, and I know what it was like over here. We had water availability charges for 80-some homes that took care of the primary values of the revenue that needed to come in for debt load on that water tower, and the infrastructure went in by the developer. So out there, it's different in the Pleasant Lake area. You've got a lot of infrastructure, and there was a contract that we had, the city of Rockville has with the developers agreement, the Shipland and Archon. And that revenue stream comes along, and if I could have that clear in my mind so that I know where that revenue coming from now that we're not getting the revenue for income coming in from those 10 water enterprise or water access fees that are supposed to be coming every year. So we've had how many years now that we have not gotten water enterprise funds from Archon? And so where is that money coming from? Is it coming from our reserve or what? Because we have
There's
never
only
got
one
an answer on
enterprise.
the reserve.
There's only one water enterprise fund, so the funds have to be coming out of there. Dwayne and I looked at the Archon
Many years
contract
ago, couple years
last
ago.
year.
Yeah,
And that's where they're supposed to be paying 10 WAC and SACs, water and sewer access charges per year, and they haven't been paying them. So that's where the city has been assessing that on a parcel that they own there.
As they sell, we collect it right there, yeah.
As you sell.
As
but-
they're selling it, we're getting a building permit, we're getting that for each of those lots, yeah.
okay. So that's pledged collateral is those residual lots that are out there. And so if we are looking at it from a business perspective, the value of those land obviously is going down because there's going to be a debt load of paying off the revenue stream I'm alluding to. What happens when there's no value left anymore? Then who pays for it? Is it coming out of right now it must be coming out of reserves. So we shouldn't be taking it from from the operations and maintenance.
No.
So if it's operations and maintenance is completely sterile from the reserve revenue stream, and if I could see that revenue stream and where's that funding coming from, then I would know what it takes for us as income. We know where the expenses are, except that we don't know 2014 yet at this stage of the game. I've had it before in
Except we have right here, I
it's
mean,
budgeted, it's not actual.
right, but regardless, we know,
That's very important to me, Sue. It's very important to the public to know what is the true cost of operating.
well, that's
for-
fine, Dwayne, but you also have to do an estimate of what's your budget and what are you trying to cover. And to say that we don't know what goes into it, it's very clearly laid out here in terms of the exact things, expenses that go into that fund. And you always can adjust once you know what the actual is, but you still have to make some estimate. Everybody does. Every business that I know of does a budget. So you build your budget, and those are all spelled out right here. So it's the total expenses budgeted,
Right.
forget revenues right now, are $147,405.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they deducted the water tower revenue and the unaccounted water, which actually comes from the general budget to the fund.
Yep,
So
and-
the remainder, $130,245, assuming if we spent it, that's what we have to cover plus the $15,000 reserve that we said. So about $145,000.
And did you notice the creep in the last couple of years, the
what we need.
147 budget, not actual, but budget, versus the actual that we've had for the last couple of years or something like that? So once we truly know the actual, and was there any abnormalities in the year 2014 true cost of operating, once that's determined, it's very easy for me to go ahead, all of us can do that very simply.
But every city
That's
has that
unknown.
lag, and I mean, so you're always looking sort of at your actual, probably in arrears and thinking about it in the next year's rate. Because for practicality, you're not gonna know that actual, I mean, so I agree you need to look at it, but I think it's always sort of after the fact, and you'd factor that in as you're thinking about the rates, but you still have to build them based on your
I agree.
budgeted amount. I'm not saying you don't
One root question that
consider
I'd like
it.
to have answered then, and that is can we see the revenue stream of where that funding is coming from for the debt retirement on the Pleasant Lake infrastructure for the
Dwayne,
last couple of years?
that's not the purpose of what we're here for. We're here to establish
A
a
rate.
conservation water rate, and we
Yeah.
already decided that the figures that we're gonna use to establish that. And so,
I think it's
We'll
fine
bring
if
it
you
up
wanna
as a
look at that, but it's not actually, doesn't impact the decision we make
tonight.
here.
right.
Well, I think it does, but I was probably the minority voting against it last time, and so we'll just, majority rule, there's no doubt about that.
Well, one question I got here, I stopped in yesterday to ask for an expense audit report for each year going back to 2010, but Judy had told me that Banyan will only do 3 years. So since we're already in 2015, I can only get 2014 and 2013. What I was wanting to show was we had pretty consistent, I ended up having to go to the council packets online and pull the December expense report. So back in 2011, I couldn't find one for 2010. Wages, employee wages and administration was $14,118. Then 2012 was just up a little bit, $15,604. 2013 was $15,642. And this last year, it went to $22,918. Now, we know that there was wage increases last year, but they took effect in June. So to jump from 15,000 to almost 23,000, 22,918, to me, as a business, I'm looking at a business, you're looking at this as a graph chart, and you got consistent expenses, and all of a sudden it shoots way up, almost 50% more than what it was already. That needs to be looked into. And that's not the only item. Chemicals and chemical products, they went way up. The repairs and maintenance went way up. I think more research needs to be looked into. What is this actual fund?
Okay, we as a council approved the budget, and that actually happened. So I'm not saying we can't answer those questions, but again, I think that's not the purpose of this, is to pick apart every line item, because we did look at this and we approved the budgets for 2015, correct?
In September,
And so-
we started it off, July.
So if we want to have look at what's in it, but
Separate from tonight?
separate from tonight, but we did look at it. I think the question we have here, we are required to set a water rate, and we need to do that. And, we're supposed to have a conservation rate, and so I think we need to focus on the proposals, and I agree with Jeff. What are the ones that actually meet the criteria and the spirit of the conservation rate
Right.
law? And then I guess I would just want, I know, Judy, maybe you could share, as we looked at the, sort of the dollars that she says the proposals come up with, they will change slightly, because the way they're calculated, it's assuming that that percentage that's listed where we said, 13% of the users are 3,000 and less, and 49% are the 3,000 to 8,000. Judy, can you just explain why that would be slightly different? And all of them would go, the revenue collected is probably gonna go down in total.
Want me to start?
I can explain, like, for an example, if I personally use 14,000, and with this tier system that we have, if it's 0 to 3,000 or 0 to 4,000, whatever you guys choose, I have to take that 4,000 or 3,000 off of my 14,000, and you keep dropping each tier, so I may end up in four of those tiers,
Right.
or if you have 3 tiers, 3 of those tiers. So the percentage in regards to where you fall is really, it may not be 23% in 0 to 4,000, because I may be doubled up in 4 of those tiers or 3 of those tiers.
Which makes sense, but I think when we looked at it, so, I think when she did these, looking at it and saying, well, if I use 14,001 gallons, there's 12%, but we're not actually gonna, and it was calculated, if you look at the one, let's say I proposed, it was at $10 for that tier, but we're really only gonna get $10 on whatever gallons are over, so it won't be 12%. So the total revenue collected, does that make sense? Because we're tiering it up. So for example, if you looked at my proposal from the last meeting, I think it said, this shows we'd collect 173,000, but you redid it, right? Or looked at it, and it would actually be something less than that, because that's like assuming if I have 14,000 gallons, we're gonna collect $10 for all of them, and that's not the case.
Right.
Right.
Well, that, on that comparison where it says 159,000 approximately revenue, and that is actually what I did was take 6 months, a full year, so it'd be 6 months billing cycle, and literally took the people's usage and calculated, broke it down to what Sue proposed, what Jeff proposed, what Dwayne proposed, what you proposed, and that's what approximate on what the revenue would be coming in. So if you looked at that comparison that you guys had, that's approximate.
This one?
This
Yeah.
And I would just add from the literature that Rena gave me from, I believe it was Minnesota Rural Water and the DNR, they strongly suggested multiple tiers, somewhere in the 3 to 5 range. They recommended percentage increases from one tier to the next tier on the low end in the neighborhoods of 25 to 30%. And then as you get to the higher tiers, closer to 50% to strongly discourage people from using water at that very high level. And I think having multiple tiers where you can incentivize people, because if you only have one or 2 or 3 tiers, then I think the chances of encouraging somebody to either try to move to a lower tier or to avoid moving to a higher tier is greater the more tiers you have. And let me think, there was something else, but. So anyway, the one other point I wanted to make, I think right now we're charging $345 per thousand.
55.
355. So that's why I had one tier that was less than that, because then I think we can encourage those people that are paying that tier. We can encourage some people to move from their current rate to a lower rate. So, we have both a positive incentive and a disincentive to avoid moving to a higher tier. So that was the thinking behind the rate structure that I came up with.
Well, if you look at the sheet that I had made up today, they had included that here.
Yep, you'll have it.
And that shows all the different plans. Under your plan, Mayor, everybody would see an increase. Every single person, whether they're using 1,000 or 28,000, they would see an increase from their current rates right now.
I guess the question I had on yours though, Rick, is that everybody who's using 12,000 gallons and less would see a savings from what they're currently paying. And I didn't understand how that would encourage anybody to reduce, their usage, because you'd be paying less for the water than what you're currently paying. And I don't see any incentive in there to reduce your usage.
It's in the flat rate concept. You are just paying less because each 1,000 gallons is costing you $5.
Well, I don't think that meets the spirit of the law of saying we're gonna encourage conservation.
It absolutely does. It states right there that you can have a flat rate. You can have a conservation rate structure or a uniform rate structure. Either one meets their standard. Either one.
One other thing before we get into the specifics of the value of one versus the other, something like that, the basic parameters. Joe Richter, who is no longer there, but Joe was the individual at DNR and sent out a letter, and he was talking about the 25% increase is a recommended percentage intended to give water customers a clear signal that there is a need to conserve water. However, DNR recognizes that many communities will not be able to get support from the mayor and council for increases that large. Find out what the politically acceptable increase is in your community and adopt that. Just be aware that if you propose increases just a few pennies, the DNR may not accept it as a water conservation rate. So I think we're all in agreement that when we strive to have a conservation rate, but to what extent? And then the other thing is, if we truly knew how the public was going to react to whatever the end result is, the 5% reduction in income was a concept that we were talking about last
Right.
month, only because we couldn't justify and grab a fact from previous. But if you look at Mr. Brown's comments, who's done this for years and years and years, most communities will have a possibly, through several years, there'll be a 2% and a 2%, and that's about where it goes. The other thing that we didn't discuss tonight, and I believe if we have a reduction of income coming in as revenue, we have an offsetting, not necessarily the same amount, but we'll certainly have less of an expense. We don't pump, we don't put the chloride in, we don't put all of that. So if we have a 5% reduction, we would also have to look at the expense side, and there would be not necessarily 5%, but there will also be less expense. We're not pumping, we're not.
Right, but it's not gonna be proportional because part of our expenses are fixed.
Yeah.
I mean, so I agree, Dwayne, there would be some marginal expenses associated with it because we wouldn't be buying, like you said, as many as some of those supplies and those types of things. But I mean, even at that, we're not gonna have reduced staff, or principal and interest payments aren't gonna change.
And this was.
Likely our,
And this letter
Yeah.
was when they were dealing with.
so I agree.
Mrs.
Yep,
Chris, so-
yep, I agree. I mean, there would be probably some marginal reduction, but.
I'd like to add that as council members, we're here to represent the citizens. I've talked to a lot of citizens about the water rates. Every one of them agrees that a flat rate would make sense to them. How many have you talked to? How many water customers have you talked to about your tiered rates?
I haven't talked
This
to
last
them.
year or in the last?
I mean now, right now. This is what we're talking about.
Well, I didn't think that was our charge. I think
Yeah.
the charge was that the DNR is saying we should have a structure that,
We're proposing an ordinance
So-
that affects the residents who we are representing.
well, we're also
And you're
required,
representing the ones that
right?
tell me a flat rate makes total sense.
Yeah, but it doesn't meet the requirements.
It absolutely does, I just read
But
you.
there's other requirements if we go that route, and that's come up with some other conservation plan. And we decided as a council last week that we were gonna pursue a tiered water rate.
And
conservation.
we can't decide that maybe we can do that report. It's not that big a report.
Bottom
We
line,
decided as a council, a majority of the council last week, why are we going backwards?
there's one
We
thing.
already spent 4 or 5 months on something that should have taken us 1 month. We,
Well,
you're
There's a lot of
elected.
issues. There's a lot of issues here that are not really clear.
One of the things that was very profound that I think, and that is the fact that educating the public is vitally important, and that's one of the concepts that they have in conservation. So if we're trying to reach out to the public, that's one of the things, irrelevant of what we do. So that should be another driving force that we have out there. And then they're talking about the fundamental challenge that we have is the intent of the amount of water usage in the summer. So, we could get a very sophisticated thing in saying, if you take all of the people that are in the winter and use that as a basis, and then you go to the summer, but how do you want to go and have how many tiers and staff people take another half a staff person? So the bottom line, we try to keep it somewhat simplistic, so we don't go into, we're a very unique city because we don't have a lot of commercial. So we can put the commercial at the same rate that we can with the residential. You look at other communities, they have all kinds of different tiers, plus they have different, and we're a long ways from that. So we're not that far apart. We can hurdle this too. And Jeff is right. It's been taken way too long.
I guess I would like to suggest looking at the sheet, the two shaded gray areas. One is the proposal that was made at the last council meeting, looking at 0 to 3,000 gallons, a flat $25 per month. And then it was $6, $7.20, and $10. And if we need to adjust those slightly, we can. This is under tab 6, if you're looking. Last page. Or the other proposal, which is listed under Mayor's proposal, where it's a $22.50 bi-monthly flat fee, and then $2.75 for for the first 4,000, per 1,000 gallons for the first 4,000, then $4, $5.25, and $7.90 over 14,000. That gets us approximate revenue close to 145 that we said we needed. The other proposal gets us slightly more than we need, and again, so we could adjust the rates within those tiers. The difference primarily in those is that one of them gives you 3,000 gallons for a flat rate, and I think those are the two that we ought to be looking at.
Both of those plans that you referred to, as I stated, the mayor's plan, every customer, whether they're using $1,000 in a 2-month billing period now or over 28,000, they will see an increase in their bill. And I think it's, as I've stated all along, I think it's unfair. The people that have been conserving and using the least amount have been overpaying for years at their total cost. And to give them another increase because they're already conserving, that just does not make any sense.
Well, then I'd say look at the other one, and again, in your first, at least you would be paying less for whether you're using 1, 2, 3, or 4,000 gallons. Actually, I should say 2, 3, or 4. Than what you currently are, and then minimally, slightly something different at 5,000.
Which plan are you talking now?
The number 2,
Your flat rate with the $25?
yes.
Yeah, that ends up costing people more too. Your first plan, your first proposal, with $20 flat fee with the $4,000 included, that one makes the most sense, in my mind. If you have to stick with the tiered plans. And we have to remember, all of these tiered plans that you're talking about is gonna take a new bill. We're not gonna be able to send them out on a postcard anymore.
Well, I think we talked about that, and we said what we
Correct.
would do is, no, we were gonna just send your bill, but we were going to put in the newsletter examples of how it's calculated, and I'm assuming we could also put it on the website so that somebody could go see an example, but we're not gonna detail every single line item.
So
We
it
will
would
be
still
very
come the
clear.
same way,
Yeah,
how many gallons you used, how much it costs.
Yeah.
And if you wanna figure that out, you'll have to.
You'd have to look at, yeah, we'd have it all, I'm assuming we can just do it on a web page, and then we'll put it in the newsletter, because we do want to be clear to people about what we're doing, but we didn't want to increase the cost of the billing.
I'm gonna make on this is, we've got all these different rates here. The bottom line is, no matter what we do, we have to meet our expenses.
Right.
That is the key one. And, some of these previous had 0 to this, there was no charge on gallons, you pay a flat monthly rate like you have to. In the next so many gallons, there was no charge on, well, you don't give free water away.
It's not free.
Not free.
It's included with the basic.
Yeah.
You're still paying.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
We have to agree to disagree on that item.
But I'd say-
There's so many cities and utilities that charge a base fee to cover your fixed expenses and your infrastructure, that, we're never gonna move off that issue. Like, if you can't move off that issue, I mean,
And that is, I did go back and look when we looked at this before, and I think that all the area cities we had looked at, because I pulled my data from it, I think there was only one that charged like just a flat fee. Everybody else had some sort of base fee and then a per gallon charge. And that varied, and I'm assuming it varies based on what they determined based on their total costs and their fixed costs versus what they determined variable were. So there was no like standard, it's $10 base fee and X per gallon, because I think every city has different expenses and debt service and all of that factors into it.
And so if I could, that same report that you had from several years ago, I got the current one, and over a third of the ones that have reported, and it's still a lot of bogus information, it's not current, but over a third of them have a certain amount of water that's included in the base fee. It's unbelievable how many of them have it. So all those other communities have gone through the same research. We can't be the only ones that are going out there. But if we're looking at Sue Palmer's first proposal, that generates $126,110 based on all the hard work that Judy did, and she did way more than I think that she should have had to do, because there was a lot of data that was not relevant to the 50s and 60s and 70,000s, but that's behind us.
I don't think we're looking at that. We gotta look at something that covers at least 145,000 range that we built into our
I
sum.
won't get my vote.
So my suggestion was we were looking at my second proposal or the mayor's proposal that's shaded in gray, and what I suggested under my second proposal is because it does collect more than what we need, is that we would adjust.
And then we won't know those figures tonight. And the other thing is, all of these plans right now have not had a public hearing, because the ones that we've proposed before had the public hearing.
And
So
close the hearing, yes.
whatever we've changed now,
We have to vote here.
we'd have to hold a new public hearing for the new proposal.
Yeah, but at least we'd be moving forward.
And if we're having one, but again, and I'm not trying to get my blood or you guys' blood stirring too fast tonight, but quite frankly, I think there's still a missing link that I feel that I need to have before I can come up, because what's the magic of $159,000 of revenue that we're generating when we don't know what it is and where's that funding coming from? Should that, and I'm probably belaboring the point, but are we taking money from the operations for debt retirement? And if that's the case, that's on the Pleasant Lake or something like that. And I know that it's probably off limits, but I'm going to try it again, and I think that's so crucial for me. And then the other side is the enormous amount of, and Member Tallman alluded to very briefly, I have records from the actual costs of several years ago. I haven't gotten 2014, but there's an enormous amount of upswing. We're still hovering around 18% of our water that is pumped is unaccounted for. And the DNR also says we're targeting for 10.
Those are all issues that you've had more than enough time to research, and we decided last week we needed to get this thing done. And we agreed on parameters, and now we're going back again.
No, I'm just trying to politely say, Mr. Mayor, and that is that 10% is 18. So if we could solve that problem and get it down to 10% as the DNR is requiring, we could do that.
What are you talking about?
10% of unaccounted water.
Oh, we can't solve that.
We can't solve it.
I can explain what you're talking about. In that thing that you just got on Thursday, or yesterday, Tuesday, if you took the total gallons pumped versus the total gallons sold, there's that amount of 4,630,000 is the 18% Dwayne and Rick are probably referring to.
Right.
That does not take into account the stuff that's
Sold to the city.
sold to the city, but
Municipality?
no, contractors, the
Fire
flushing,
department, flushing,
hydrant flushing.
And it's sold.
That's- so it's
Then
under
it's sold,
10%.
So then it should be in the amount of water sold, so then the 20 million is bogus. The 20 million should be a lot higher.
That you didn't sell flushing a hydrant, you didn't sell that to the city. So the
Yes, you're
contractor
right.
stuff is, that part is very little, there's not that much in regards to contractors coming in and buying.
So when I read unaccounted for water, the 18.6, that's bogus?
It's not the final
Well,
number.
It's, you have to take that 4 million and you subtract out flushing hydrants, we got it down to, what is it, 10% or
It is
9
a-
point?
We do?
Yeah, the
We
DNR
can
is
do
the.
that for you, if you want to see that, certainly will.
Yeah, all that water, the state law defines that as water used for public purposes. And that's what you pay sales tax on.
Right.
No, we don't pay sales tax.
You need to, by state tax, on sales tax on water that is
Used for
not
public
sold,
purposes.
has sales tax on it. Yeah. Freeport tested that in the court a couple years ago. Yeah, but that's again not the issue tonight.
They don't have that anymore?
No, they don't.
We just changed that.
As of this year.
Last
Building
year.
14.
So we tabled the public hearing, so whenever we.
You closed the public hearing, so yeah, you're
Or
going
close
to
it, yeah.
make up your mind.
We'll have to schedule it.
You digress. Yeah.
Well, I think we need to move forward, Jane. We get elected to make decisions sometimes without perfect information. And we beat this one up pretty bad. I think we need to move forward. What do you think, Don? You could be a truly objective party. You didn't have any proposals in here. Which one do you like?
Well, on any one of these I look at, based on my water usage, if conservation, I'm gonna pay more on my water bill as far as my water. Because where I fall in, I am falling in bracket where I'm in the middle. I'd have to really suffer to a great extent to drop down to probably a lower rate or stay where I am, or if I lose much, I'm gonna go to the next rate. And also I look at the one, and I still do the point, I want to see the one that's gonna make us money to cover our expenses. I don't, irregardless of the pumps are running, not, there's enough funding to cover everything that's there.
Well, we have that.
Yeah.
If we can accept what Judy and Rena put together, that's roughly 145,000.
Right.
Mine's shy by a couple thousand, Sue's high by,
Susan's not in yours, John.
but it's all going into that fund, so it's not like it's going anywhere else.
Right.
So it's just, Dwayne was the one that suggested we put 60,000 into a reserve fund, and
It's
so
not-
we
that's the
decided
state.
15, we decided 15,000 over a 4-year period, so if we in fact collect, something more than 145,000, then we can decide it's gonna stay in the reserve fund, or we can decide to adjust next year, and it's not gonna get spent outside that enterprise fund.
But based on that, we're making an increase, right, we're proposing to have that included, the 15%. We don't know, maybe we are at the 60,000 right now in reserve.
No, we don't know exactly, but we agreed that we were gonna set 15,000 aside
We said
last.
60, and the mechanism not in 1 year, we said $60,000 we're gonna have.
That was your suggestion, 50% of the 120,000,
Yeah.
which is 60,000, and the council voted and agreed that we do it over a 4-year period. So for the purpose of this meeting, we were gonna build in an extra 15,000.
For this
But
1-year
we
cycle.
were going to decide where our starting point was.
No, we didn't. We said we could adjust that if, in fact, it was something materially different, but Rena said that she wouldn't have that figure done until the audit was done. So 15,000 is what we agreed to last week, right?
Then
We can check the minutes of the meeting.
I believe it was after we found out what our starting point was, what we would collect over the next 4 years.
When's the audit gonna be complete, if that's what it takes to have it? Quite frankly, the audit uses the information that Rena presents to them.
But we need to be able to build.
looking at these figures right now, some of these, I'm inclined to either Sue Palmer's second proposal or your concentrated use proposal that comes up with 142,699. 159 is a little steep, you know, we'll have more we could put. But on the same token, we raise this money, we can go back and look, we can adjust your rates, always can go down or adjust them accordingly.
When does that ever happen?
It's always the first time. There it is.
That's what was said after the last increase.
Well, Rick, if in fact we hit the 160,000 that Sue projects here, which is an extra 15,000, in fact we put 30,000 in the reserve, well then next year we can decide maybe we don't have to put 15,000 in, or we just get to the 60,000 1 year earlier. It's not that big a deal, it's all staying within an enterprise fund and built towards the reserve.
And another thing we have to do, like Dwayne alluded to earlier, we got all these numbers, but have anybody seen any kind of literature to say, what can you do to conserve water? There has been nothing sent out by us or from the DNR. They want to propose it.
There's a great big thing that you get on the internet in a heartbeat.
Dwayne,
Oh, excuse me.
you can get on the internet, but a lot of people, they're not internet savvy. If there's something out there to conserve water.
That's
I mean,
our
that
charge.
You can, we can get that out to them, because then they'll know what to do. Because if you're down in the park, like, I know where my rate is for my plant in the winter, what we use. In the summer, it's gonna go higher. I know where I'm gonna fall basically in. And some of it's gonna cost me more on any proposal here. But the proposal I looked at are the ones that are gonna make money that, not a year from now, we have a major water break, we gotta dig up a whole block of city water line to replace it, and we don't have the funds to cover it. That's what I'm looking at, too, because we have issued the water tower, we had some issue the other day with dirty water in the city. All these things cost money that might have to be fixed. So I'm looking at the one that's gonna get us close to what our goals that we need to operate, and so there's a little reserve left there. And like I said, right now, either Jeff or Sue, they're the ones I'd say are probably the most probably sure the rates are higher. It's gonna cost me and probably some other people more in the rate they follow, what they're using. But we're gonna have the money there to operate hopefully the system, and then educate the people. There's ways you can save water. You got to check the water out, you can catch water that you can use
I
also.
do think we have to be concerned about the aging. This is true in lots of areas of our aging infrastructure, for sure in the core city. And so I'm gonna make a motion to approve the proposal that generates 159,000, which gives you 0 to 3,000 gallons at $25, 3,001 to 8,000 at $6 per thousand, 8,001 to 14,000 at $7.20 per thousand, and over that it's $10 per thousand gallons.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and second for the discussion.
Yes, there is, and digressing in just a moment, and that was when Mr. Simon asked me to lately. What I was saying, Donnie, was the fact that there is information that DNR has and it's on the web. It's not for the public, it's us, the city. That's where I was getting at. So it's us, the city, that has that charge, and it's right in the DNR charge. And we as a directive, as a council, give that directive to Rena, and that's her charge. So that's one of the things that we're talking about, is to educate the public, not that the public has to educate themselves. That's where I was getting at on that comment, okay?
Yes, I agree. I mean, how do we put something in the newsletter, or, even though you said not everybody, but links on our website or whatever, tell us all of it.
Can I just say that we've been doing that for about a year already, putting it on the website and in the newsletter?
The other thing
With information that we received from the Minnesota Rural Water Association, we're using their posters and stuff. And we're part of the Sylvia group and say, well, we use their information. Just say it.
The other thing we could do is with the first billing, we could have the extra expense of sending an envelope out with the first billing and put that flyer in and explain in more detail on that. I just have one comment on sewage. And I'm not for giving away water free over and above the fixed, the base rate to cover a fixed expense. I just think in theory, you got to charge something for something provided. However, I do can reconcile that in my own mind because, you know, right now I think we're at 1908 for fixed expenses and Sue's proposal is 25, which adds an extra $6. So in my mind, $6 for the first 3 gallons is roughly $2 per thousand. So I can agree or look at it the way that we were charging $2 per thousand gallons. So a motion been made and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2. And we'll schedule, this will be up for the public hearing, bring up the next council meeting.
On March 18th,
March 18th, okay.
a month from now. 6:30 p.m.
Open forum.
Well, we're trying out 6, City of Rockville. It's too bad that this water conservation thing turned out to be so growing. It's agonizing, I'm sure, for you all. And in some ways, it's almost shameful. I just want, one note that I got on this is why is the DNR asking for this? They're calling it a conservation water rate. It's not a conservative water rate. It's a conservation water rate. So Dwayne mentioned it once, and that's the first time I've heard it through the whole process of putting these water rates together. People need to be educated why we conserve water. They're not just doing it to save money. That isn't the whole issue. People need to know what the impact would be if we didn't. We got to drain our aquifer, we got to pollute it. We got to put fertilizers on the lawn and water day and night. Let it soak into the groundwater. You know, there's things there that people need to be educated on. And I think that should be included in package. I know there's been a lot of information that's been out. I'm seeing some of it. But that's as big as an issue as there is on just being conservative with water. I don't think that should be forgotten in this process. Then I have just an observation here. I agree with the good governance training for the League of Minnesota Cities. And you mentioned that possibly just the chairs would attend. But if you set a meeting date of April 1st, and I suggest that if the chair of a committee can't make it, that they would have an alternative member attend, have that possibility, so all the committees,
I would think they all could come.
All members
All.
should.
all members can come.
They would be invited,
It
right?
clarifies that. And I know quite a few people that are on different committees, and I heard a lot of this in the last few months, and that's about open meeting laws. And I'm hearing that there was an issue on this recently, or something that brought to attention. I don't know all the facts, but if something like that is brought up, proposed, it should be followed. Particular committee meeting, there was already a council member there, and the mayor, and 2 other council members came to the meeting. And it's my understanding you can attend the meeting, but not speak. Well, someone chose to do so, and I think that could be considered a violation of that law. I mean, if this was pointed out so ardently beforehand, why break it now? Just a reminder, I was sat here at a council meeting not too long ago where the city attorney was inviting me to watch this very closely. The implications can be really bad on it. And he gave you all those stipulations, so I think that needs to be followed. I don't know if it was a violation or not, but I wouldn't even be close to it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Can I make that comment here, since you just mentioned that? A regular meeting is a schedule, this is all in our council book. Schedule on file at City Hall. This is what we approved, okay, last month. Okay, here, the fire department meeting is next Monday, the 23rd, at 7 PM. Now, since that was changed to February 9th, that becomes a special meeting, which requires notice. There was no notice sent out. I attended that meeting, and I left that meeting because there was a quorum there. And I stated that to Rodney, that there was a quorum there if I stayed, and I would not stay. I did attend the Public Works meeting, and I did sit there silent. Dwayne was there too, so there was 4 of us there at that meeting, but he was there as a resident speaking. He can do that. And we're getting good input from somebody that knows the city's infrastructure, so I just want to point out, there's plenty of these that have not been adhered to, and that's why we're going to have the working session.
That fire department meeting, I got to know about it at 12:08 on the same day that it happened.
Okay, that wasn't the story I heard, but regardless.
And that can be solved real simple. When you have a master calendar at the beginning of the year, and the council goes and says, anytime there is a snowstorm or a holiday or whatever, automatically that meeting goes to the next day, the next week, whatever. We create it, takes care of all of that. I learned that as a leadership this last time around. You just have to set that as a resolution, advance it that says, okay, the public, everybody is aware of it. If it's President's Day, and that happens to be when you had your meeting, it automatically goes. Most cities go by a week, in case you're wondering. They say, if it's the 3rd Wednesday of the week or the month that you have your regular monthly meeting, and you can't make it on the 3rd one, it automatically drops to the next one to the 4th. End of story. Same thing with the fire department.
And the fire department, the reason that got changed there is because we came up for our training recertification. This was a date that this training company do, and we will move that. And I'll tell you, I've been on for 30-some years. And the amount of public people that come up to one of our meetings, it's irrelevant, you know, you move the dates. We're doing all this extra paperwork because.
Well, that's not the point, Don, you can't
I know.
not follow the
Yeah, I follow,
rules.
but what I'm saying is, this came up, we changed it, we didn't get the notice out, you could've came up there, maybe we could put you on, this next month, we'll come up, we'll have you do CPR.
The fire department does not have that flexibility to
Yeah.
just say, we're just gonna
But-
change it without notification.
By having a workshop though, and
Yeah.
participating in the workshop, then he becomes aware of the fact that there is a certain criteria. Once you put your hat on as a council member or the mayor, you can never take it off for the rest of your life. It's sad, but that's the way it is.
Can I just,
Well, that's what they tell us down there.
I know we.
Well, they'll see you on the well, I shouldn't say.
I know we do this, but can I just, I know I had somebody call me, over the weekend. Can we just make sure we publish in the newsletter and maybe we put it on our homepage about who they call if there was an issue with the grinder station and they weren't sure who to call. And I know we put it out there before, but who are they supposed to contact after hours or on a weekend if there is an issue and they need somebody to come look at it? So could we just put it in the newsletter again?
Aren't they supposed to have the grinder, the little tag on their refrigerator that tells the numbers are given there?
Well, I don't have that on my fridge, so I don't know
But
what.
in this case, we don't have.
Can we just publish it again and make sure we put like somewhere on our webpage, like for after hours or emergencies,
Our phone here now.
who they call and the number is.
So we get the information.
I
Go
know
ahead
that
and call on
it's,
Saturday, Sue.
Yeah, I think they called you also.
Yeah, I called it and I.
I called the person.
We got it resolved and
Yeah.
it was taken care of. And it was cold out there.
I know that some of the grinder stations on the electrical box has a tag on there, but some of those tags are wrong. I noticed that from a neighbor of mine that had his going off and they had somebody else's number to call. Yeah.
Sue makes a good point though, that's what the newsletters are for.
Okay, we have a grinder station and like honestly, I'm not sure I would have gone out there to say, oh, I need to look at a tag, because I'd probably forgotten that there was a tag on it.
But there's a button to silence the alarm.
Right.
So then if you're silencing the alarm, you might see the tag.
So there you go.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Made second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion